And one of the things was that I had a picture of Funakashi's son, and he was in Gidanbara. And it said, the caption was, anyone that knows what they're looking at will see the genius in this technique. And I thought that was, and you did, you could see it. You could see his shoulder was down, he was fully engaged, his eye was on the horizon, and there was almost an existential element to it that you really couldn't put your finger on, but you knew he was skillful. Do you all relate to that? So when you're moving, I would say anywhere, even in this sort of amorphic things that we're doing, we're going, if anyone were to take a picture anywhere in that movement, your technique it has that quality. You're not just trying to make that move look good, and that move look good, and that move look good, but anywhere in there, wherever you are, it's got that quality to it. You follow? And that's just, and I would say that's an argument for training slow. Like when Tai Chi people move really slow, I mean, they have this deliberation, so they feel every increment of their movement. In our karate, we tend to feel this, and feel that, but how much are you really intimately connected to the thing in between? Do you get that? So I would recommend, I mean, a lot of my practice is really slow, feeling that kind of engagement in my movement, you know, whatever it is that I'm doing, I'm trying to feel that really smooth connection all the way through. So anywhere, if you were to micro-slice it, yeah, that's an example of karate. Okay? Do you guys have any thoughts or questions or anything about your practice? Or it doesn't have to be what we're talking about, but I want there to be a conversation too, so.
I have a question.
Yes.
So I've always had difficulty with the back knuckle, and you did it really well with pinching the shoulders.
Mm-hmm.
But in that specific situation, we were already shoulders back with downward block, so how do you reapply?
I'm going to use my hips like I'm cracking a bullwhip. Like when I crack a bullwhip, right? So when I'm here like this, I'm going to launch into my movement and then boom, pull. So from here, that feeling like that. Here, so it's like, but it's this is my wrist cracking the whip. I would say that same quality right there is, so the very first kata, whether you're doing Taikyoku Shodan or Heian Shodan, depending on the dojo you're training in. But when you make that turn in the downward block, so of course most people would recognize downward block is a reverse rotating technique. So people tend to teach it this way. They say each, and people will twist, and then they make the downward block, right? And that's, I'm thinking how a lot of people teach it. They rotate in, and then they block. They get this very punctuated reverse rotation motion. But if you go way back, they didn't do it that way. They rotated into it. So people they just turn and block in the same direction as. So I would say it's neither. It's actually both at the same time. So what I would do, and this is kind of what I'm doing with this movement, is you get going in the direction of. So I bend my knees, so I always tell my students, look, draw, and drop. So I look, draw, and drop. So I get this potential, so I'm not falling into my stance. So I look, draw, and drop. Now I've engendered my shape with this potential. So this now can push me in that direction. So it starts pushing me in that direction. But at the very end, at the very end of this motion, I insert my wedge. Can you see that?
Yes.
Because, boom, like I'm putting this wedge. So when I do reverse rotating movement, I'm not pulling my body away. I'm cutting my edge in. So I'm rotating on this axis. You see what I'm saying? Like this is my boat, this is the bow of my boat, I'm cutting. So if I get this motion going, and at the very end of all this torque, I then apply it to a cut. You see that? So it's like, now if that isn't hard enough to get this rotation in and the cut, then it's really hard getting them to land with the foot, because you don't want to have the foot done and the hand after the fact. So it has to be the heaviness of the step is the heaviness of the block. So it's that sort of what I'm doing here. I'm rotating in and then opening. Getting that my little tada at the end.
So there's only counter rotation at the moment of kime. Like literally just to get that, what you were saying with this
to get to open up the body or to cut in. So here's the other thing I would say too, is think about, we talk about rotating a lot in shoulder. you're rotating. But what are you rotating on? You can rotate on your center axis, or you can rotate on this, or you can rotate on that. So a lot of times people tend just to rotate on their center axis. Well, like if I'm doing a reverse punch, I don't know if I really want to do that because part of my body's going the other direction. So I think what I want to do is I kind of want to rotate on this axis. So I'm shutting this thing like a door. So the heaviness, get on a heavy bag and just go, whoa, and see how hard you can hit it just by sliding into it with the half of your body. But the thing is that when you block, so if I'm making downward block, unless you want to, like if I want to just check the technique, like the guy's coming in and I'm just kind of putting my hand there, check the technique so I get this expansion and then shut into it. But if I actually want to do a downward block that does some, like Funakashi said, like your hands into your swords, then I'm not turning away, I'm cutting in. It looks like I'm turning away because my body's going this way, but I'm pivoting not on this axis, not on this axis anymore. I'm pivoting on this axis, and that cuts me in. You see it? It's like you fill the space with that wedge. Right? Same with that. Same with that. Cut. It's like if I'm stepping in back stance, it's this edge coming in that makes my block. Right? I'm not doing this. So think of when you step, it's partly a function of what you're doing with your foot, but it's also a function of what you're doing with your hips. So your hip is ejecting your foot. So if I'm moving in back stance, when this foot goes out, what's making it go up partly is my snapping that hip. That hip is pushing my foot out. And that foot going out is pushing my elbow out. And my elbow is going out as my block. Yeah.
Do you have any words, also, one of my great challenges is transitioning from slow practice to fast practice?
Yeah, okay.
So,
So what I would recommend is go slow and do hardly any energy. And I am a firm believer in slow practice. I think anytime you do anything with a sense of deliberation, you'll naturally have a greater connection to it. And it is difficult. Like sometimes moving slowly is exceedingly difficult. Like try taking slow kemming. I mean, I've tried to do that. Like I've tried to do a forward roll where, you're like, it's not easy. That wasn't it. I can't go up after the dog act. But you follow what I'm saying? Anything slow is very difficult to do. So I would say, having a really deliberate practice, so start with that. Then I would say always err on the side of being really relaxed. So whatever you're doing, whatever I'm doing, I'm just really loose. And in my desire, I'm going to feel tension, because I really want to do what that dude was telling me to do. You follow? And then once you say, okay, I'm feeling that. Okay. Close your eyes, feel it. I feel the music in it. Then I would say, then you slowly start just adding some speed. And I don't even hit any key point. Just feel the width of your body. Then add your connection via your breath. I think you have to look at the most dynamic thing that you can control, and that is the quality of your approach. Like your practice is uniquely your practice. Nobody told you that before. It's driven by the quality of questions you're asking yourself, what you're looking for in your training, how you resolve issues that you say, hey, I felt a hint of it here. How do I get a hook on it and draw it back in and feel it more in my mood? How do I feel the sweet spot of the tennis racket every time? Okay, but that has nothing to do with anybody else. It's your relationship with your practice. I'm a heretic because I don't think you're going to find any salvation through me or through the JKA or through any organization. You're going to find a direct connection that will be a celebration of your existence on this planet via karate. And who cares if it? That's all your authenticity of that is all you're caring about. Okay?